Hey guys, so with Bracky's Game Jam right around the corner, I just wanted to take some time and make a quick video here about some jam tips. So a lot of you guys might be new to game jams, or even if you're not, some of these might help you out a bit. And I'm also going to show some free resources that you can use for royalty-free assets that you can use in any game jam. So the first thing I want to talk about here is, first thing you want to know what you want to get out of the jam. So decide if it's something that you want to try competing, you want to get one of the highest ranking games in the jam, know that ahead of time, or if you just want to get practice working with a team on making a game if you've never done that before, or even specific tasks. Like the last jam I went in, I had some goals. I wanted to learn some new things, like more work with Cinemachine, more polish on my games and particle systems. So I spent a lot of time with that and post-processing. So decide what you want. Just know that when you pick something specific, it's going to take away from something else. So if you're focusing more on making the highest ranking game you can, you're probably going to want to stick more to stuff that you already know how to do than having to research and look up and learn and trial and error new things. And vice versa. If you're trying to learn new stuff, you might not rank as high because you're spending more time learning. So just know what you want out of it and decide from there. The next thing I would recommend is knowing ahead of time if you want to work solo or with a team. So if you do want to work with a team, I would start looking into finding teammates and people to join ahead of time before the jam. So good ways to do this is, especially for Bracky's Jam as this example, join the Bracky's Discord server and you'll meet a lot of people on there, especially around Bracky's Game Jam time. That server is very active, and it's always active on a regular basis, but around a jam, it's super active. So find people you want on there, and then also spend a bunch of that time learning what those people do. So what their task is, what kind of stuff they like, if they're a 3D modeler, an animator, if they like doing 2D art, programming. Find out what everybody on the team likes and wants to do for the jam, and then assign roles. So it's good to make a team where everybody kind of has their own tasks. And if you make a bigger team, you're probably going to want somebody that's kind of acting like a team lead that can direct everything and keep everybody on track to make sure you're following a timeline. Okay, and then the next thing I would recommend there is spending a decent amount of time once the theme is revealed on ideas for that theme. So a lot of the time I would suggest not jumping on the first idea you get unless everybody's super on board and really excited about the idea. A lot of the time you need to sit there and brainstorm a bunch of ideas and then something will stick. It's basically, throwing ideas at the wall, seeing what sticks, and then when you find one good enough, then go with it. The next thing I want to talk about is polish for your game. So this doesn't always mean, a lot of the time when you hear polish for a game, you're thinking the end game visuals, all the post-processing and, cleaning up animations and stuff. It's not always that. Polish can be very simple. So when you start making a game, my idea of polish is, as you're making it, add sounds, add music in the background, things like that. A lot of people leave that until the end of a game jam and then find out they either have a bunch of bugs or they overscoped and they barely have time to get a working build, and they'll publish it with no sound, no background music. And going through and playing games like that, even if the game itself is very fun, with no sounds or background music or player feedback, it feels boring. Work on that early. Stuff like sounds, little things like simple screen shake, a little bit of particle systems. They don't even have to be very fancy or look pretty. Just having something in there to give the players some feedback as they're playing makes a huge difference on the gameplay of your game. Okay, next step I would suggest is always keep your game in a working state or very close to a working state. And what I mean by this is, don't take a huge scoped project idea and start working on that entire thing at once, where your game is not going to be buildable or runnable until you finish that. So a lot of the time I see people where they'll spend like a good day or two with a game that they can't even compile and run because it's just code after code getting to that point. Do it in small baby steps where your game always runs. That way if something happens, say the last couple of days, all of a sudden an emergency comes up and you can't do anything, at least you have a game that's working that you can submit or other people can work off of. When the game won't run, there's really nothing you can do with it until all of that code is fixed. Okay, another thing is a good title. Don't leave this until the very end. Some jams, rarely, but sometimes the name, just comes out of the blue and it's perfect. Most of the ones I've been in, I find a lot of the time at the end, you're sitting there crunching name ideas to find something that's not boring or lame, and it takes forever when you could be using that time to work on other things. Another thing I want to recommend is if you're planning to make your game where you're aiming for a highest ranking game on the jam, spend some time going through the jam page, see what all the categories of ratings are. Every jam is a bit different. They're usually very similar, but some jams will use different rating categories than others. Go through, see what all those categories are, and plan that when you're making your game. So work on the game with the idea that you want people to rate these specific categories of your game. Scope is another huge thing. You need to make sure you keep your scope small. Every time you think your scope's small enough, you probably still need to decrease it and make the scope even smaller, so you don't end up with a huge list of things that you can't do at the end of the jam. Another thing I would recommend is interacting with the community on Discord, as well as the message board for the jam on itch.io. Getting to know some people and making some connections on there is a really good thing. And the more people you know on there, the more likely they're going to play and rate your game. So once the jam's over, if nobody actually wants to try out your game and rate it, you're not going to get any feedback. You're not going to get ranked in the jam. You want to make sure lots of people are interested in your game. So it's a good idea to keep hopping on Discord every now and then, post some updates or progress, and just make some connections on there. All right, next tip I want to talk about is making a tutorial. So make sure your game is always easy to pick up and play for somebody that's never seen it. It may seem like it's easy and intuitive to you, but if somebody new hops on, they've never played the game before, if they can't figure it out in the first minute or two, they're probably going to leave and not play the rest of your game. So if you make something fairly intuitive, and I would recommend trying to keep it in-game, even if it's just a simple menu on the game that shows what buttons do what. You can also just put it on the itch.io page, but I find people aren't going to look hard for your controls. So I mean, if they hop in the game, they can't figure out how to play. Some people will look on the itch page to see how the control scheme works. A lot of them are just going to move on to the next game. Next tip is have real people not on your team play test your game often. So if only you and your team members test it, everybody's already going to be biased. You've been making it, you know how to play it. You're not going to get real feedback that way. So either if you're, around other people in the house that can try it, get them to try it and watch their reactions and don't guide them at all. And then if you're not, and if you have nobody around, find some people online, just ask them what their thoughts were and as much feedback as they can give. Most people during a game jam, if they have a bit of downtime to relax and not stress on their game, they'll usually try out your game quick, and they're not going to spend a half an hour on it, but a couple minutes here and there, no problem at all. Okay, next one, make your game as easy to access as you can. So when you create the build and upload it to itch, make it easy to get on there. So I mean, most people will put a download. So put a Windows executable if you want to put other builds for either Linux or Mac if you're capable and able to. That's going to increase the possibility of more people playing your game. But the main one I would do is if you're able to make a web build, I highly recommend web builds. I find web builds will get you way more plays on your game metrics than a download, because people can just go right in their browser, click it, give it a try. They don't have to worry about downloading a file, opening it, seeing if they like it or not. So anything you can make easier to make people see and play your game, go for it. Next thing, I want to talk about how important your itch page is on itch.io. This is really important. A lot of jams, people will just submit the game last minute and they'll put nothing on their page. No images, no details, just a game build and submit it. And the likelihood of people actually playing that is slim. You want to make your page appealing. Don't leave this until the end. You should do this early. A lot of the people on jams I see, they have problems at the end. They're having problems submitting the game, building their page. You want all of this done ahead of time so you work any of those bugs out, and then make it visually appealing. So here I'm going to show a couple examples here. So this is just on a page of some of mine that I've done before. This is one from the last jam I did. I don't have a lot of art skills, so there's nothing fancy here, but it didn't take me long at all. It took like maybe 15 minutes to make this page. I just put a simple logo for a background. I made an animated GIF of the gameplay here. So this is some of the gameplay when you're actually fighting a boss, a couple screenshots, a little bit of a write-up on the game, and then just your download instructions here. So it's nothing fancy at all, and you can click here to play the game right in the browser. So it's nothing fancy at all, but it's enough to get somebody interested. Another big thing is your thumbnail. If the thumbnail looks boring, nobody's going to play that. Okay, and one of the other things I want to talk about here is just make sure you get plenty of rest as well. Don't crunch the entire time. So you want to actually get some rest so you can think. Get some good sleep. Keep taking breaks. Get up and go for walks. A lot of the time, if you're struggling with a really complex issue that's bugging you, if you get up and start walking around for a while, when you come back, a lot of the time you'll either brainstorm an idea while you're walking, or when you get back, you just have a more clear head that you can actually figure things out. Okay, so that's pretty much all the tips. The last one I just want to leave with here is make sure you plan everything on the last day to be done. Don't wait for the last minute. You want to have good leeway on submission time. Like, I would say at least a couple hours before the deadline, I would plan to be submitted by then. That way you have time. If you go to submit and something goes completely wrong, you at least have time to work out issues. Okay, and one last tip I want to mention here is when you're done the jam, when you're doing all of your ratings, a good thing you want to do is play as many games as you can and rate them and leave comments on the submission page for that person's game. Because the more people see somebody playing their game and leaving a comment about it, the more likely they're going to go to your game and play your game and comment as well. So the more people you can get actively playing, rating your game, the better you're probably going to do in the rating system for the game. And a lot of the people I've been doing jams a lot, when they're viewing all the submissions to play, a lot of the time they sort it by what's called karma. And what that means is you're going to see the people's games that have been rating the most other games on the jam. So if you're going out there and you're playing a lot of people's games, you're going to show up higher on that list for them, and more likely they're going to play your game. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, that's it for all of the tips here. And I'm just going to show you a couple quick free tools you can use here. Okay, so links to these will be in the bottom description below. The first one I want to show here is for making some cool 8-bit music in your game. It's called Bosca Seol, I think is how it's pronounced. This is a completely free program. A lot of game jammers use this one. I know Bracky's made a video about this before as well. So you may want to check that out. I'm not sure if he had a full tutorial or if he just described it. But it's pretty easy to use, and you can make some basic tracks even if you don't have any music experience. So that's one tool I would recommend there. Another one here is opengameart.org. And this is a place where you can get royalty-free game art, 3D models. I think there's sounds here as well. Most of the time, I usually just get 2D art here, so like sprites and tiles. But there's a lot of stuff that you can do. You can browse by various categories. Yeah, it looks like there's music and textures now. They even have some tutorials and concept art. So this is a great site worth checking out. And this is probably one of the most popular sites for free assets, especially for game jams, kenny.nl. Everything here is completely royalty free. And he has numerous different 2D and 3D packs as well as user interface. So you can find a lot of stuff here. Another good one is defont.com. This is a free site where you can find fonts. You just have to watch what the license is when you find them, but all the description is right on here. This is one of my favorites. I use this all the time in jams and regular games. If you go to bfxr.net, you can download this free tool where it creates it creates music for you. So you can make various sound effects, and I actually have it open right here. I can just show a quick demo. So if you want some jump sounds or a hit sound, you can just keep clicking them and it'll make random ones. Same with jump. And you can tweak them and make your own custom ones. You don't have to keep hitting random here, but you'll get all kinds of different sounds. So a lot of the time what I'll do on a jam is I'll be playing the game and I'll just sit here clicking for random sounds until I find something that fits, and then I go with that. It's very quick and easy. And a last one I want to talk about, this one, I'll put the URL in the bottom. Yeah, so this is a guy that goes by the name DST, and also No Soap Radio. He has a couple different places where you can get his music from. You can get him off his Facebook, you can go to this link, and there's a few others I don't recall offhand. I usually use this one. And he has hundreds of tracks that he's made that are completely royalty free, and they're awesome. All you have to do is just give him credit and link to it when you use it. But these are very high quality music files. And you can preview them all here. But yeah, they get really good quality as you go through. And he has so many different styles that they fit almost any kind of game. So I'm going to put all these links in the bottom. And that should be everything I have here. So happy game jamming, and I wish you guys the best of luck.